Hi everybody, and welcome to this month's Elevenses. This is on reporting for success. My name is Stephen Power, and I work in the UK agency team. And this?
My name is Richard, and I am an analytics guru from our UK support team.
Okay, so on the agenda today now, we're going to run through some handy reports to use in Google Analytics to show you how you can utilize audience behavior information to see if there are any opportunities within AdWords to advertise towards any returning visitors, for example. We're also going to run through how your audience behavior across the world can find opportunities for you in terms of export, and also how to attribute properly through analytics using multi-channel funnels. So we'll kick off with some handy audience reports. Just to let you know, all this data is actually taken from a sample account. So first of all, okay, what I'm going to have you look at is, it'll be useful, of course, if you have your analytics account open. You can go to the conversions tab, filter down to multi-channel funnels, and within that you can look at time lag. So this is the sort of report that should appear in front of you. So as you can see from this sample account, most of the conversions actually come from first interaction. So 71% there of conversions come from the first interaction in this case. However, a sizable amount also come from the 12 plus days column. So that tells us that a lot of people, at least 17% of people, 17-18% of people are taking longer to make their decision. An interesting thing about this column, if you could see down below, is that while they represent 17% of actual conversions, it also represents 26% of the overall value, telling us that people who come back after 12 days, maybe do a bit of research in between, tend to have add more value in terms of conversions. They basically spend more when they do a bit of research. So I suppose the main point to take from this is that you can have a look at your remarketing lists, and you can extend the membership duration of these lists, or if you're not remarketing already, it's a useful pointer to tell you that you could be. Here is the path length report. So within conversions and multi-channel funnels again, just the sub-tab that says path length. So as you can see here, 24% of people require 2 to 3 visits, and 40% of people are needing more than one interaction to actually convert. Once again, as you can see from the people who convert on the first visit, the conversion value is actually a little bit lower technically than people who convert after one visit. So you can see that people who do a bit of research and return, once again, are more valuable. And it's interesting as well to see the path length, just to give you an idea as to how much research people are doing prior to purchasing your product. When it comes to remarketing, then once again, it's a good indicator if you're not doing it either on the display network or on Google search. It's a good indicator that you could be, and you could be tailoring a message to bring these people back, either with offers or landing them on a specific landing page that you feel would be most valuable to place them on. Okay, so moving on. So we can look at single session users versus multi-session users. It's a very useful report to look at. It's using segments because multi-session users tend to convert more often. I think you should be seeing the same trend within your own analytics account. You can get to this report by actually going to conversions, then the sub-tab e-commerce, and just going to overview. And in your segments, you will see actually all users as a little blue circle. You can change that by clicking on it to single session users, and then you can add a segment that says multi-session users. So in this case, you can actually see that the conversion rate for multi-session users is much, much higher in this sample account at 4.44% versus 0.8%. And the average order value is more than double at $60 versus $29. So this, more than anything, really is an indicator that tells you should be bringing back as many people as possible. Because really, for me, the average order value there stands out, showing that people who come back, maybe go away, do a bit of research, come back, are at least twice as valuable, or make purchases that are 2 times the size of one interaction users. So with that sort of data, and obviously like within these reports here, there are all sorts of like sections you can go to and you can play around with that maybe are more relevant for your specific business. But what do you do with that information, and how can you action it? So you can use the power of analytics to actually build remarketing lists and easily send them to AdWords. So this is useful both even if you already have remarketing running or don't have remarketing at all. It just makes it very easy to actually create very smart lists. So the way you do this is you actually go to the top of your analytics account and you click on the admin tab. Make sure you have the correct account and property and all that. And within the property column, click the audience definitions and audiences, and you'll then have a choice of the audience type. So you can see the choice here. Smart lists are actually built out automatically by machine learning, basically on people who are most likely to convert. New users are obviously all users. Is if you're kind of new to remarketing, that's more than likely the list that you'll be using at the moment. Basically, anyone who's landed on your website gets placed on this list. New users are 1 session users, and returning users are more than 1 session. Where it gets juicy and where you can play around with lists are people who have visited a specific section of your site. So one that we find very useful and performs quite well both on remarketing on Google search and remarketing on the display network are people who have actually been to, they've put something in their cart and they haven't actually ended up converting. So they've been through all the steps in actually purchasing something on your site and they haven't actually gone and made that purchase. You can also have people who have users who completed a goal conversion of yours, maybe downloading a PDF on your site or something like that, or also people who have actually purchased something from your site, because it's also a very useful way of bringing back repeat purchasers. Now, I'm going to pass it over to Richie, who's going to take you through some of the reports that will indicate where you can export to.
Cheers, Stephen. So one of kind of the best things about analytics is that we'll give you a really, really in-depth look at where your users are actually located. So who's visiting from different parts of the world. And this can be really, really useful when you are thinking of looking to export, when you're trying to find a new opportunity, when you've kind of outgrown your market a little bit. So as Stephen mentioned earlier, this is taken from a US-based advertiser who doesn't really have any international distribution channels. So if we look at their stats here, you can access this report by going to the Audiences tab, then into the Geo bucket there, and just under that you'll pick the Locations option. So we can see here that the US accounts for about 42% of the traffic, but 96% of the revenue. So about 60% of the traffic coming to this site is only contributing to 4% of the revenue. So there is a really, really, really large untapped market there available, okay? So when you start to see trends like that, and you're seeing a lot of international interest in the site, it may be time to start thinking about how you can look to expand and where you can go to. Similar, we can see Turkey here contributes 6% of the sessions, but only about 1% of the revenue. So it's a very, very small portion of the revenue, and even though that they are contributing to a decent portion of the site. And we'll touch on kind of why maybe people aren't exporting out and what we want to look at next, okay? So if we kind of want to get a bit more of a broader view and we are starting to think about our distribution channels, we can dive a little bit deeper in here. Just there, primary dimension, you'll see there's an option for continent. So if we click into that, it will give us a breakdown of the various continents and those same statistics. So again, we're seeing the exact same trends here. We see that Asia and Europe is contributing to about 30% of the traffic, but literally about 1% of the revenue. So it's very, very small. So why isn't this business exporting yet? So there can be a number of reasons. It can be to do with currency and kind of evaluating products and changing products based on currency. It can be down to their website. Maybe their website isn't up to scratch. Maybe they haven't started to translate into European languages, or they haven't started to translate into Asian languages, or maybe it's just simply down to the distribution models and they haven't established them yet in those areas. Either way, we can see that there's a huge amount of interest and a huge amount of traffic coming from these various locations. So it's well worth starting to take a step back, starting to reevaluate the business model and trying to understand where you can kind of improve and where you can expand to. Now, we can keep diving deeper and we can get what's called a search traffic comparison. And this will show us essentially the revenue based on the users who are accessing us through search. You can get this report in the exact same area we are, but simply just change the segment on top from all users to search traffic. This will give us a breakdown of the revenue that's contributed from the various countries based on kind of the search models and how much they're accessing us through search. This is a good way to kind of figure out where you want to expand to as well. I'd always say spend money where you make money, essentially. This is kind of a good one here for this. Looking at this, it's always good to kind of think about how you're going to approach it. Think about what you want to do next. The immediate knee-jerk reaction may be to look at Canada there. We see they're the second biggest spender, and they've got a decent portion of sessions, about 3.2% of the search traffic. If you look just below that, you'll see that Singapore is coming in third with about 850,000, and it's only got about 1% of the traffic. Singapore's revenue is actually greater than the next 7 countries below it combined. So from the data we saw in the previous report, looking at the continents and seeing that Asia came in as the second most frequently visited continent, and from looking at this and seeing the amount of revenue that Singapore alone is contributing versus these other 7 next top 10 countries, it's very, very clear that Asia holds a huge amount of potential for this business, and it would definitely be time to start looking at expanding and developing a distribution model in Asia for the time being.
Cool. So finally, basically we're going to go through multi-channel funnels and how they can help you attribute correctly the various advertising channels or where you appear online. Essentially, there are several different models to go through here. Because a potential user may discover your brand via a display ad, and return to your site later to research and finally convert through maybe a search ad or directly. It's important to give that display ad, we'll say, a little bit of credit as well. So essentially, multi-channel funnels reports allow you to analyze your conversion paths and sequences of interactions that actually led to conversions. So to clarify this, we'll go through some attribution models that you can use in analytics. So there are several of these. Let's just take a walk through them. The last interaction model attributes 100% of the conversion value to the last channel with which the customer interacted before buying or converting. This is useful if your ads and campaigns are just designed to attract people at the moment of purchase, or your business is primarily transactional with a sales cycle that does not involve lots of research. The last non-direct click model actually ignores sessions and attributes 100% of the conversion value to the last channel that the customer clicked through from before actually purchasing on your site. This is actually the default model used in non-multi-channel funnel reports. This is very useful if you consider direct sessions to be from customers who've already been won through a different channel. Yeah, so essentially that's the last non-direct click. The last AdWords click model attributes 100% of the conversion value to the most recent AdWords ad that the customer clicked before buying or converting. It's useful if you want to identify and credit the AdWords ads that actually closed the deal. That's when you'd use the last click model, last AdWords click model. First interaction model attributes 100% of the conversion value to the first channel which the customer interacted with. This is appropriate if you actually run ads or campaigns to create initial awareness, maybe if your brand name is not very well known, and you want to attribute all of the credit to the channel that actually created brand awareness in the first place, or first exposed the customer to your brand. The linear model gives equal credit to each channel interaction on the way to conversion. You'll see in a minute that can be 2 or it can be very, very many when we look at the path to conversion. It's useful if your campaigns are designed to actually maintain contact and awareness with the customer throughout the sales cycle. So it kind of touches on, I mean, a bit of remarketing that we talked about earlier on. You know, they might have initially in the awareness phase learned about your brand through a display ad that you might be running. When they're considering purchasing your brand after being on your site, you've hit them with a remarketing ad, and then finally they might have converted through an AdWords search click or an organic search click. The linear model gives equal credit to each of those channels. Time decay. So basically, if the sales cycle involves only a short consideration phase, this is when the time decay model may be appropriate. It heavily credits the touch points that occurred nearest to the time of conversion. It's useful when you run promotions like 1 or 2 day promotion campaigns. So you wish to give more credit to the interactions during the days of the promotion. So these could be ads, you know, explaining the sale that you have on or whatever. So it gives those ads most credit if they're the final step or in the last couple of steps. And second last here, the position-based model allows you to create a hybrid of the last interaction and first interaction models. So instead of giving all the credit to either the first or last, you can actually split the credit between them and assign a certain percentage of credit to the interactions in the middle. This is useful if you value the touch points at the start and at the end of the cycle as most important to winning the customer over. So, multi-channel funnels, right? So, if you go to the conversions tab, filter down to multi-channel funnels, and simply go to overview, what you have here is essentially a complete overview. It gives you a little Venn diagram of what channels. It gives you little visualizations of what channels have brought in the customer. Quite useful and quite a simple one to see where you're getting most interactions. As you can see here, direct is bringing in the most for this sample customer, and display is quite a small proportion there. You can see it in the middle there. Just visualizes it nicely. You can also see that you have assisted conversions up the top along with conversions. So moving into actually assisted conversions, because this is quite interesting and does give credit to things that aren't the final interaction. So this is the same conversions, multi-channel funnels, and assisted conversions. You can see here that direct, once again, is actually the highest performer in terms of assisted conversions. With a lot of advertisers will say who would run quite a lot of display, will say, or YouTube, you might see more than 60, for example, there in the assisted conversions column for display. And this is a useful place to see what your brand campaigns are actually doing for your sales, and also we'll say, for example, if a sort of remarketing campaign that may be high in the consideration part of the funnel If it's not getting a lot of direct conversions, this report will show you what it's doing to the overall picture. And finally, very interesting sub-tab here is conversion paths. So this is once again conversions, multi-channel funnels, and just conversion paths. This shows you the unique conversion paths that actually led to conversions, the number of conversions from each individual path, and the value of those conversions. So as you can see, let's take for example number 2 and number 3. We've got a referral and then a direct click, and we've got 374 conversions. That makes up of almost 8% of overall conversions, and it attributes a value of 2,700 to those. So 374 have gone from a referral and then to direct, and converted through there. The third one is, so people have searched organically, and then they come directly to the site, and we have 362 conversions there, making up of $1,560 in terms of conversion value. This is very useful. Once again, if you do run a lot of different types of advertising in all sides of the funnel, so awareness, display, in the consideration phase you're running remarketing, and then obviously the intent phase you're running search ads, you'll usually see a decent mix of conversion paths, and you can see what's working and what isn't working and make smart decisions based on that. So that's it in terms of what we have today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found it useful, and goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Thanks a million, guys.